I've started recording for YouTube now. Let me do one quick move over to audio. All right. Welcome to the Spare Change podcast. Today, I have Brandon Childers on once again, and we will be discussing MilMoneyCon 22, where we went up to Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina at the Embassy Suites for an event hosted by Lacey Langford from the MilMoney show, or MilMoney expert. She's got a bunch of different titles to her name. Very thorough and professional in the realm of finances in the military. Brandon, how was your experience at MilMoneyCon?
Oh, just awesome. It exceeded my expectations, which were already high because I as a listener of Lacey's podcast, and she just has such an incredible network of professionals helping the veteran community in the realm of finance. Like you said, this was her first annual conference, and it so far exceeded what I could have hoped for in terms of the information that was shared, the connections that were made, and just across the board, it was a really positive experience. How about you? How were your connections, and what were your takeaways?
So I definitely learned a lot more than what I initially thought it was all going to be about. So my outside perspective was going to be primarily people who are already in the financial industry discussing the financial industry as a whole. Mm-hmm. As we dove into the first 3 days, I really realized this is a large collaboration. I think there were a total of 115 people registered for the event, somewhere close to that, from all walks, talking how to increase your business efficiency and scale and grow your business in social media, how to create a podcast and develop an audience and continue content. Those things were really interesting to me as someone who's very business minded and has a podcast. And then the financial side of things, I've learned a lot there that actually augmented some things that I was already doing, working with a firm and trying to get licensed as a financial advisor, still part of that process. But also I learned what CFPs were, certified financial planners, and AFCs, and all these new terms.
Just like the military, it's chock full of acronyms. I have no idea what's going on. Right. It was a lot of exposure to what I didn't know in that realm. Did you find a lot of words that you weren't familiar with?
So one of the first events we went to was the keynote address on the first day. And there I learned what a paraplanner was. And following on from that track, associate planner, lead planner, and partner within all of the aspects of a financial firm, as well as the different paths you can take to be in the world of finance, but not necessarily be hands-on with clients. I think the main point that Alex Hopkin, she was one of the keynote speakers there, and she spoke to the idea that as a paraplanner, you can live outside of the financial industry. You're not client facing, so you're not going out to people direct. Most of your clients are already existing within a firm, and you can discuss with them. You can help them meet their goals outside of the role of what a direct to client financial planner would be doing.
Yeah, the Sean Gillespie, one of the early speakers, made this point that you don't need a planner as much as you need a plan. There's a bazillion different routes you can take.
Right.
Fee, no fee, and it's a broad landscape of services available. And I think that was a little bit centric to the theme of the problem. Like, oh my goodness, there is so much going on here. Where do we begin? So the overlap between the finance community and the military community. We're in the center ring of that Venn diagram. It's really starting to translate some of this language into, the speak of our people, which does not know what a fiduciary is, for example.
Right.
Now, what did you have a talk that stood out to you as
Yeah, so actually I wanted to bring this up. Didn't really matter where we brought it up at, but Nick Bradfield, his discussion on the entrepreneurial operating system, or EOS, and what his perspective brought as someone who doesn't yet own a business and is in the very planning phases of it. I think there's a lot to be said for bringing your people to a table and discussing, hey, we have a lot of problems, but what actions are we taking to achieve results? And it can be worded a lot of ways. My preferred method to describe that process is, more often than not, I rely on PAR statements. I use them in my resume. I use them to discuss issues or conflicts when I'm in conversation with somebody, and I use them in a business sense. I think his was worded slightly differently. There were meetings where it would last 90 minutes is what he described. So you would use 15 minutes on the front end to discuss if you hit or miss a topic, or whatever your goals were assigned to you. And then, without explaining, oh, well, here's why, or here's an excuse as to why we're not accomplishing a goal, you then go into 60 minutes of discussion. Like, what do we need to do? What resolutions can we put in place today that will achieve the results that we set out to achieve in the start? And then in the back end, after that first 75 minutes, you toss on the last 15 to meet your 90. And that is discussing results or discussing the way forward, as a means of task development and introducing a structured way of thinking that will achieve a result or your desired outcomes.
It's very forward looking, especially in terms of not spending a lot of time justifying why you did or didn't meet a goal. Yes or no. Okay, it doesn't matter. What's next? How do we progress? And what will it look like if we get it right? I was really a big fan of that layout. And one of the things he said was to work on, not in, the problem. That you've got to be able to zoom out and take a kind of a holistic view of what's going on. And as you begin working on a problem, you really get sucked into it. And when you're inside the problem, you're not as effective as working on it as you would be external to the problem. So another poem he said that I felt has summarized a lot of my trying to make sense of all this fire hydrant of information is, if I had more time, I'd have written less, which is, he said it's been attributed to a few, Mark Twain or Churchill said it. I don't know whose quote it is, but he said it. And I thought it was, again, speaking to the, oh my goodness, this is a lot of information. Where do we begin? And the working on the problem, not in the problem. The veteran community in general, we, you can't boil the ocean. I think we're all pretty, not all, a lot of us are super capable of this like hyper focus, just get the job done mentality. But what you said about like a roundtable discussion about the issues at hand, that really resonates with the junior enlisted person that often didn't get involved in the decision-making process. We're wicked good at getting it done, but gee, are we a little bit curious about why and how we're doing that? So it's awesome to see that light bulb click in people that get that, the voice for the first time. It speaks to the talent pool that's transitioning into these fields, which was exciting for me to see you there. It's so fresh out of the military.
I'm still within my 30 days.
Right. So like as opposed to, we had retirees there, just a wealth of knowledge. And another theme central was, I wish I knew this earlier. So if we know that there's all this information out there, and that golly, I wish I had learned this yesterday. Well, okay, now we have the message we want to deliver, which we've had. Now the question is, how do we deliver it upstream in a way that is interesting and digestible to the audience, which has traditionally not been met based on the finance classes I sat through when I was in. Perhaps you had a similar experience.
Yeah, I actually believe I really lucked out early on. I had our section's deputy officer in charge. He really led the financial conversation among the lower ranks, and his discussions were, well, what do you want to talk about? And he would hit the questions where they were, and then he would propose an idea. I just got a warning that I am running out of time on my Zoom because I don't have that premium.
Okay. We'll edit that part out. Don't worry.
Here, we'll pretend like I'm not doing this. You can go ahead and discuss some other things. I'm still recording either way.
Sure. My train of thought. It was really cool to see just the gamut of perspective from the still active, the freshly transitioned, that been out for 5 years, that been out for 20 years. But then also within all of those, from the junior enlisted up through, there's colonels and generals there. So yeah, across the seniority of rank and time in service, time out of service, there's a lot of different diversity of thought, and which is always the beautiful thing that you're trying to cultivate anywhere that you're trying to innovate or educate or improve. One of these, did we get, are we sorted out recording wise? Are you good?
I'm actually gonna go ahead and upgrade my account really quick while we're having this discussion.
Oh, you don't have to do that. We can we can pause it. This is a great time to hear from our sponsors.
Okay. It's actually not going to be too complicated for me to do this.
Okay. All right. Well, we're cool. Let's keep it in. We're doing it live. This is the live upgrade. The podcast just
we're gonna ensure that YouTube no longer faces issues. All right. They got me sweating a little bit. All right.
Oh no, that's you're
put
really
me on the spot right now.
Rolling with the punches, doing it live. And for our listeners, we're always interested in sponsorships for the no, but to that point, so many fruitful connections were made. I think I'm gonna end up getting at least a job or two out of MilMoneyCon. I will absolutely be there next year. With, and as we discussed, with a synthesized perspective on the first year takeaways. As a first annual conference, it was the first annual military veteran conference I have been to so far this year, which is exciting. We're on the front wave of a new the wars are over. Everybody's back. We got the fresh perspectives, big ideas, the GI Bill, a lot of resources ready to be applied to the problems that the gauntlet of problems ahead of us. So at this point, it's just about the equitable distribution of the resources and making everybody in the pipeline aware that the resources are available and their ideas matter. And anybody from anywhere can come up with a good idea and pursue it and build it and improve the scenario. This meeting has been upgraded by the host and now includes unlimited minutes. How luxurious. Let's talk forever.
Good Lord, they had me on the hot seat for sure. That was
But
interesting.
I think this is, I hope you'll leave all that in as the example of like, you set out doing something. I'm going to make a podcast. I don't really know what I'm doing yet, but as you fumble uphill, you figure it out on the spot, you laugh about it, and then you're on to the next problem and you kind of forgot what your previous failures. If I could share a story briefly from the first conference, she was MilVet Startup Con in San Francisco, which is in February, which I hopefully we'll be able to get you out to. Let's come back to that on the side and discuss. But Tim Tsai organized that event, and he started off the conference with the story about America is a startup. And it was really funny. What was there? America is a startup. He had a picture of like Washington crossing the river, and like you're gonna have to work weekends, and like but the big, it was about making success out of failures and the battle of Bunker Hill, which I guess the Americans, like, we lost the shit out of that battle, and it wasn't even Bunker Hill, it was Reed Hill, and we lost our asses, but we survived. And you don't have to win the battle. If you survive, you're still in the fight. So what they did is instead of saying we lost the battle of Reed Hill, they renamed it Bunker Hill, and they said they won. And they made this big victory out of a loss that provided them with this morale and momentum to keep fighting. And we still live in America today, under the American flag. They didn't stop there and say, "Oh man, we lost." At the beginning of this, I was fumbling through my words and couldn't remember what I was going to say. And and 5 minutes ago, when we were about to get booted off the Zoom, like, that's always the fear. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get on camera. I'm an idiot. I don't want to. I'm going to do it live. That sounds terrible. Yeah, well, I've consistently made mistakes. I'll make more. It's okay. Like, it's more about just kind of establishing that, the good intent. And that's what's so warm and special about MilMoneyCon is, like, again, that the intersection of the Venn diagram of people that are really, by and for veterans. And it's just nice to be able to let your guard down and learn about topics that are usually, you have to be so on guard and skeptical about. Not to say you don't still have to be, but how are you supposed to learn in a place where you're so uncomfortable? I think opening the dialogue and creating a comfortable place for people to come and ask their questions and learn about the things they didn't know about. That's, you don't get real good improvement if you can't break down those barriers. And traditionally, they've been difficult barriers to overcome. But the connection and camaraderie we have in the military really allows the trust necessary to build the relationships we need to learn honest to goodness complex topics that are difficult to wrap your head around. And the small town I went to high school in, it was a joke. I'm not smart enough to learn that. I'm not going to try. Like, it was easy to discredit yourself as I'm a big dum-dum, not going to try. Well, that attitude doesn't work. You're not allowed to get away with that in certain circumstances. So why let it in this one that like so heavily affects all of us? I think there's like such a good, I don't know. We're obviously super niche down to the junior Marine population. So I see a huge opportunity to like use friendly competition to learn together in the same way that you exercise together or accomplish any task together. But on a broader scale, creating a place where people that come from small towns in Georgia can, climb the socioeconomic ladder and then come say, I got my advice from these people and they looked out for me. That word of mouth trust is really the best thing that we have in we're talking about advice here. We're not talking about just a product. This isn't a can of soda. This is like an investment in your future. So it's a really important the trust piece is huge, and you could feel everybody in the room striving for it, and it's refreshing because it demands transparency that again I don't feel we enjoyed the luxury of as lance corporals.
Following up on one of the things you spoke on, the event really did open the dialogue, and in a way that I didn't expect, and I'm sure not many people expected. They actually brought in the director of the Department of Defense Office for Financial Readiness, Mr. Andrew Cohen, and some of the things that I highlighted that he discussed in times like the times that we're in, i.e., a global pandemic, global economic stress based on the war in Russia and Ukraine. We're starting to see an increase in stress, but a reduction in the overall satisfaction, readiness, and retention in the military. And some of those pain points in hard times will breed those solutions and those discussions that need to be had. I know you asked specifically a question about the effectiveness of an app that was developed by the DoD to discuss finances and change the perspective on finances. And then the question that I asked had to do with reaching that bottom line in a more effective way by putting the onus on leadership. And their rhythm for attacking the financial problem in the military focused initially on training and then following on with counseling. And then you take those metrics and you assess and you develop a product to protect. And those are some of the highlights that I took away. But that was the cap on the first day was his speech. You can share your insights as well.
It was so very awesome for him to come down and talk to us and to share that insight. And again, as lance corporals, not usually a room you get to sit in a perspective you get to hear. So it was awesome to feel. Always feels good to get a glimpse behind the curtain and feel like you're in the in crowd. So as he was saying, there's stress, there's tension, there's friction, there's difficulty in retention, and there's conflict. Like there's stressful times upon us. The theme of his talk that I picked up is the quality of information making it to the top where the solutions are coming from. And it's a bad telephone game. And this is, again, we don't often get invited to the table. So I was excited for the chance to tell Mr. Cohen, you're getting lied to. When you walk onto a base and have 3 privates stand at parade rest and tell you what they think about your product, they're not telling you what they think about the product. They're saying, well, we love it. It's great. They're trying not to get yelled at. And there's no way to innovate a technology product or any product where the end user really needs a good solution We just don't have the room for people standing at parade rest and giving the answers they want to hear. You need real cultural insights that can primarily only come from within. So the app that I asked him about, as I understand it, it's not the DoD's app. It's the app that the DoD, it's the horse they bet on. And it had a substantial budget. Not the entire budget wasn't allocated towards it, but, and again, this is my understanding based off the public information. And I want to see it do well, but it's not doing good because it's a fire hydrant of information that is not packaged to speak the language of the end user. And it's frustrating both as a service member and a taxpayer to see the amount of resources that go into dead-end solutions because of bad intel. And like, it's, on the news shows when they'll take a black light into a hotel and kind of highlight what people are actually sleeping in, and it's alarming. And it's like, it's not good for the hotel business, but the consumer deserves to sleep in a clean hotel bed. You should be able to trust that it doesn't light up like a Christmas tree when you turn a black light on it. Well, I think the same thing for the American service member or the American taxpayer. Like, we should have the trust that things are as they seem. And it's just, that doesn't exist because people have not, you're not able to make informed decisions. And so much of this realm has been intentionally hazy, intentionally deceptive. And, that's fine that it worked in the past. It's not fine. It is terrible and dirty, but the cat's out of the bag. For better or worse, the internet connectivity and, the connectivity we're experiencing and the transparency it's bringing, everything's going to come out in the wash. We've got black lights. If you've got something to cover, you ought to clean it up because I don't know, to any industry, and especially the banking industry, no industry is immune to innovation. A new company will come along and figure out a better way to address the problem of the customer that the old client used to serve. Tesla was not the biggest car company when we were children. Now they are. And by the time, we're 60, there will probably be a new company that has outrun them because that's how innovation works. And it is counterintuitive to the square-wheeled nature of the solutions that we often limit ourselves to, as it seems from the junior enlisted perspective. But again, in getting invited here and getting to see the connections being made and the hands that were being shaken, it's really inspiring. And it makes me optimistic about the solutions that are available and just the good people that are working on the problems that are really difficult for the veteran population. I'm long-winded.
So, you're good. So we'll tackle the next bit, talking about days 2 and 3, because we just went over day 1 and it was very extensive, and a lot of what we just went through was very much the experience. It was jumping in, getting our feet wet, and like encountering large amounts of new information that we're not familiar with, the things we have between our ears yet. So one of the things that I was interested in the second day, Sharita Humphrey, she went over doing business with the government and increasing profit margins for your small business. 2 of the things I'd like to highlight, or actually I think it's like my first 3 bullets. Veterans are 45% more likely to be self-employed, whether post-service or active duty. Following that, with 1 in 10 small businesses are veteran owned. You can speak to that point more fluently than I can, as you're already in that position of running and operating a business.
Mhm.
And then veteran-owned businesses and firms employ 5.8 million individuals, which I'd say is very, very significant considering the number of people who are in the military versus the number of people veterans employ.
Sure. Definitely interesting numbers to look at. But what another statistic, after World War II, like maybe 4.2 million service members came home, and half of them started a new business. 1 out of 2. Today, 5% are starting businesses. 1 out of 20. That's not a good direction, right?
Right.
So I mean, the likelihood of a veteran or a service member being, it's more common for service members to become entrepreneurial, but there's still a huge shift away from entrepreneurship, nationally. And I think that it's related to this, smile saying it, like the social upward mobility problem and the wealth divide. There's a number of metrics that we can look at and say, okay, these populations are really suffering. If we look upstream, oh, well, wow, a substantial portion of the available resources are being held by a smaller and smaller group of people. Now that's the capitalism that we know and love. And I think that that's the depressing tailspin that a lot of veterans go through, is the service orientation and camaraderie that you experience in a tight group of people that is nothing remotely similar to the competitive atmosphere, the experience in the real world, where people will drive their Mercedes over your homeless body. They don't care. It's just different, and it sucks. It's individualistic, and it's the scum of our society, and it's depressing. However, and as Mr. Cohen said, that type of misery and suffering, a silver lining to that dark cloud is the innovation that can stem from it. And to see the people that are innovating the problems that we all recognize, collectively and with a focus on solutions, not profit margins. I do believe that these problems not only can be solved this way, but have no choice but to be solved this way. And once we get our ducks in a row, the individualistic mindset doesn't hold a stick to organized collectivism. Whatever industry that applies to, like, enjoy it while it lasts, but better solutions are coming, and they're going to be done transparently. They're going to be done more effectively, and with the transparency you can hold up and point to. I assure you that the algorithms that those solutions are going to replace cannot offer that same level of transparency, because they were built with intentional deception that has led to societal problems that were never fathomed when the products were released, because that's the nature of technology. You fix one problem, you introduce another. And if those solutions aren't sought after with a thoughtful approach to both ends of that bell curve, both tails, you can drive engagement, sure, but what are the consequences? What are the eating disorders you're introducing to middle school girls? What are the suicide problems you're introducing to minority populations? What are the nature of studying minority and underrepresented populations is you're never going to reach all of them. We can spend time discussing the people that aren't at the table, and we're not getting their perspective, and there's still a perspective we haven't yet considered. That's unfortunately unavoidable, but what you can do is take an approach where you recognize what you don't know, and that you don't know, and come to a collective agreement on the confusion you're trying to address, instead of just pursuing things the way we do business because it's the way we do business. Well, there's an elephant in the room, and it's harming a lot of people. So again, it's just
Yeah. I think
We're getting diverse voices in the room, and it drives solutions that you don't get when everybody's patting themselves on the back.
Yeah, I think there's growing opportunity, and like you said, where we're developing technology and improving as a society in that aspect, you're also creating not a gap, but you're creating space when technology improves for there to be more transparency and for those issues to come to light that have been developed over years of um, let's say the wrong solutions or missed opportunities in the past. I think even though the metrics might have slumped, I think there's a growing opportunity and growing resources based on those new highlighted issues that we talk about. And people who are disadvantaged are starting to grow into the space as well, in the aspects of like minority owned businesses, women owned small businesses, things like that. There's a growing opportunity to fix some of those problems. Not saying it'll be overnight, but I do like the idea that MilMoneyCon offered a very business perspective as well as the financial industry or the social media aspect of things in the finance industry and military community. There was a focus on improving business relations.
Lacey created a psychologically safe place for people to come and connect and say, I don't know what that is. Will you tell me? And I think that's the education that can happen in that type of environment far surpasses standing at parade rest saying, yes, I understand, to things that you just don't get. And in social work, there's this dream that the people that need help will find it. And it's just so frustratingly often not the case, where there's resources available that just don't get connected to the people that you're trying to help. How do you go about this? So I think that, some of the methods that Lacey implemented into the conference to make comfortable spaces for people who consider themselves to be introverts. How do they share an idea in a place that is so overwhelmed by the talkers? Well, she had a plan for that. She had the Make Your Point board, where anybody could go up at any time throughout the conference, middle of the night, and write a point on a whiteboard, and everybody else could vote for it. And then all those people had a chance to address the entire room. I think that's such a cool way to bring up things that you didn't know. It's just a public bulletin board.
Right.
The other, I had something else to say on the, I forgot what it was. Everybody's working so hard on such a similar problem, but it's like a middle school band. It's just chaos in the room. Like, what we really need is a conductor to come get us all on the same beat. And I think people like Lacey and Tim Sy and people and their families and teams, and there's a lot that goes into these conferences. They're huge to produce and to orchestrate and put on, but that's exactly what they are. Is they're orchestrated, and it's orchestrating a band that wants to play together but just otherwise doesn't know how.
Right.
And it's high highs and low lows. It's a tough culture to be an 18 through 23-year-old in. So it's just really inspiring, to if you're in the barracks listening, there's you're not alone, and there's very much people forging the path ahead, creating opportunities for whatever your interest is. You can weave baskets, you can lay brick, you can be a hedge fund manager, anything in between. I just saw recently the university, like the top 10 universities and how many startup companies came from them, and where startups come from across the country. So many of them are from Harvard, Stanford, USC, and UCLA. there's just like 5 or 10 schools that are prominently, this is where the startups come from. None of them were from where I come from in Georgia. So if you have no connection to um, the world that you'd like to be able to get into, it's really hard to tap into it. It takes a special type of character and pizzazz to stumble into something that you're unfamiliar with and uncomfortable with and say, I'm here to learn. That's much easier to do when you recognize your people in those groups and you can approach and say, hey, I'm a Marine from Georgia too. How did you start your career at Facebook or at, fill in the blank, Google, any company? And I just like, I applied to a lot of those jobs just because it's the crapshoot, the pipe dream, shoot for the moon. I'm going to get a job at Google. No, I didn't end up getting those jobs yet, but the sky is the limit, and that's the point. If you come from a place where your sky is, um, you don't have as broad of a skyline view as you could have. Like, how am I trying to say here? The capacity for your potential is bigger than you can currently imagine.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
I think another great point within that is no matter what walk of life you come from, whether you have struck it rich and you are a trust fund baby, just you've got your path ahead of you. Dad's got like 18 companies for you to choose a job at, or you're disadvantaged and you're living off of less than what the opportunities that you have are, i.e. you're starving, but there's a program that could help you, but you just don't know. Things that we've talked about where there's always something that you don't know from my perspective. And it's beautiful in a way that creates not only a hunger to improve your basis for knowledge, but also there will never be an opportunity that you can't grow into. I think there's always room for improvement. And speaking specifically in finance, I think that rings true.
The limiting factor is the mindset. It's not the nature, or it's not your biology, and it's not the nurture, your background. There is science to demonstrate that your positive mindset can overcome both of those hurdles. Not to call them hurdles inherently, but there's Marines get taught a mental fortitude in boot camp to like push through the physical pain and figure out how to push your body past its limits. Awesome. That's great to be able to do physically. You can very much do it mentally and push yourself to new bounds in education or anything. And that's, I guess, like, if I had more time, I'd written less. The point is, like, you have to have a direction. It's too difficult of a culture to stumble in and hope to get lucky. But if you go in with a plan and say, I would sure like to be something in the realm of this, get a general direction, there is very much a network to help guide you and carry you across the mosh pit to deliver you there if you know where you want to go. But again, you can't hope to get lucky. You got to at least pick a direction for yourself so that your network can help get you there.
And I think that ties back to the initial like parts of this discussion where rather than having unlimited choice where you can talk to so-and-so, or you could apply for this grant or XYZ, having a plan and having thought dedicated to a goal is the ultimate solution in every aspect. Whether it's social media, whether it's a business, whether it's your personal finances, whether it's you trying to help others in any of those areas. If you're not planning for that, you're setting yourself up to fail. in a lot of cases. So I think
Not planning is planning to fail. Is that the one? But
that's, yeah.
it's like, and like Sean Gillespie said, you don't need a planner, you need a plan. And your plan is not going to reflect the way it turns out. You're going to crash and burn 100 times. But if the plan orients you in the direction of a goal, and the goal is primary, you'll overcome all those other, you'll pay Zoom in the middle of the call to keep it going and figure it out and figure it out on the backside, because it's what you do. With that, I do have to wrap it up soon to go look at a preschool. Big times over here, but we definitely have more to converse about in the realm of MilMoneyCon. And again, I will 100% be there next year. It was such a positive experience. It brought so many good people doing so many good things together. It gave us a chance to meet in person for the first time. And it's just, if anybody listening has any questions about, transitioning, picking a vocation or a job or a profession or a career, whether it be in finance, technology, agriculture, anything, there's just, if you don't know what job title you want and you don't know what company you want to work at, you think about an industry you might be interested in getting into. Nobody told me that until I got into grad school, and I had no idea what I wanted to do when I grow up. And like halfway through grad school, somebody broke it down. Like, you don't have to think about it as a job or even a company, but like an entire industry. Change the way you're thinking about it, reorganize, and then go back in with the way that you were thinking about. If you're looking for a new car, what's more important to you, having a stick shift or it being red? Who gives a shit what color it is? Like, change your search criteria. Like, I don't know, man. I always enjoy talking to you, Dawson. You really,
I appreciate your time, man.
Yeah.
If anybody, like you said, if anybody has questions, I think we touched a lot of what the conceptualized MilMoneyCon, what it was and what it will be looking forward. It is a huge opportunity for the worlds of finance and military industries to meet. There are some tag-alongs such as social media experts and business experts that really helped tie the bow on everything and make such an opportunity and experience for everyone there. I'll be sharing resources in the description below, as well as links to my social media, Brandon's social media, and all of the ideas and concepts are here and available to be discussed. So if you would like, please feel free to reach out to either one of us. Our social media will be in the link to follow below, and I encourage anyone who enjoyed this discussion to share, and have a great day. Glad having you, Brandon. You have a good one.
Thanks, Dawson.